So initially I wasn't actually going to cover this whole Bethesda plagiarism story. It's a couple of days old now, so many of you probably have heard of this, and I will take that into account as I cover it. But either way, after reading some of the other coverage and even reading some of the fan responses, it seems like there was almost a bit of a divide there. Some people were saying this was no big deal and getting way blown out of proportion, while other people were saying this is a pretty big deal and could lead to further troubles for Bethesda, who already have had a kind of rocky 6 months. And overall, I would just say I think the coverage of this is kind of leaving out some major points or not emphasizing them enough. So even if you have seen a video on this already, I bet you'll get some more information from this one. So the part of the story many of you guys probably already know about is Bethesda was caught plagiarizing. Although there's an extremely important distinction to be made that I don't see people making enough, and that's the difference between Bethesda Game Studios and Bethesda Softworks. Bethesda Softworks is a publisher, and that's the company we're concerned with today. They deal with publishing all of these various games you have heard about and probably seen. Bethesda Game Studios is a separate company that works very closely with Bethesda Softworks. Bethesda Game Studios develops games. They make these games that you're probably familiar with. Although the game we're talking about today is The Elder Scrolls Online. The Elder Scrolls Online is published by Bethesda Softworks. They're dealing with the marketing side of the game, but it's developed by ZeniMax Online Studios. So Bethesda Game Studios pretty much has nothing to do with this situation. They're totally irrelevant here, outside of the obvious association with the Bethesda name and being under the same umbrella. Well, The Elder Scrolls Online is getting a new expansion, that being known as Elsewhere. This comes out on June 4th, and it's going to cost $40. It's a pretty large expansion. It's adding in a ton of new content. They've been posting trailers around it, and naturally, in the time now leading up to June 4th, promoting this, trying to get people to pre-order it. And as a part of that promotion, we do see the present plagiarism. A few days ago now, we did get promotional material for this game. It was tweeted out by the Elder Scrolls Online official account, but also shared on other platforms like Facebook. In this, they describe how the Netherlands Bethesda studio, that being Bethesda Softworks, the publisher, and the Netherlands branch specifically, put together an amazing ESO tabletop RPG adventure, and they provided a link to it. And after checking it out, you would find this: the instructions, character pages, and everything else you need to have this tabletop adventure. Well, pretty quickly, people started to realize that this was plagiarized, and pretty much the entire thing was plagiarized, and not subtly, but almost word for word, with some of the paragraphs literally being just about copy and paste with like a few words in between changed, but otherwise being identical to the original work. That original work being a Dungeons & Dragons adventure published by the Wizards of the Coast back in 2016. After this went up on the Elder Scrolls Online social channels, people immediately started calling it out. It actually ended up getting back to the people that originally wrote the work. One of them, known as Paige Letman, actually created a PowerPoint slide showing all of the plagiarism and side-by-side comparisons of what she wrote versus what was published in this Elder Scrolls Online promotional material, and the other author had a snarky tweet about Bethesda plagiarizing his work. Following this, it was taken down from just about everywhere, although the Dropbox link to it, which was one of the original ways it was distributed, kind of lingered for a while and wasn't taken down with everything else. We got an official response from the Elder Scrolls Online social account saying they would be investigating the source of this, and then we got follow-up replies from the Elder Scrolls Online account describing how they wanted to create a unique Elsewhere-inspired scenario that could be played within any popular tabletop RPG rule set, but further that they requested an original scenario be created and are investigating why this one doesn't seem to be original, and further asking people to not spread around the material since many had downloaded them now. And yeah, that's large in part the whole story, at least up until this point. Although there's a couple of things I do want to emphasize here. This wasn't like a sold tabletop RPG, and I think not enough people are mentioning that. This was provided for free just through a tweet. It still was blatantly plagiarized, but that does definitely change things. Bethesda nor the Elder Scrolls Online team wasn't directly profiting off of this. You could argue they were indirectly profiting off of it because it was used as promotional material, but I think that is an important thing to mention. As far as how this came to be, it really seems like this was something done at the Bethesda Netherlands branch, which naturally is a lot smaller than the greater Bethesda Softworks, especially as you see it in the US or the UK, and someone there just got a little lazy and took the easy way out. Rather than doing their own work, they stole somebody else's. But then from there, it doesn't seem like it was ever vetted. People didn't do the plagiarism check or just trusted that guy's work at face value. And then from there, we saw it promoted on the official social channels. Another Another pretty important thing to note, I would say one of the reasons this is getting so much coverage is one, it's just kind of popular to hate on Bethesda recently. I'm not saying whether or not that's deserved or not deserved, but following their issues with the Elder Scrolls Blades and especially Fallout 76, negative Bethesda articles definitely get more clicks, and that's probably why you saw so many of them on this issue. But even further, there definitely is a certain sense of irony here. Bethesda and their parent company of ZeniMax have had several lawsuits in the past over titling issues. At one point, Mojang was producing a game known as Scrolls, and Bethesda made them change that because of their Elder Scrolls license. And there's other ones like changing the spelling of Prey in a video game title. So now seeing them actually stealing or plagiarizing other people's work is almost kind of some sweet justice in some way for some users. As far as the legal troubles or how the original authors feel about this now, Paige Lightman, one of the original authors, did have a fairly long Facebook rant, and actually that's where that PowerPoint presentation was, but she since has deleted that, and the other author has actually been tweeting things around this, whether it be articles talking about it, YouTube videos talking about the issue, but also the official response from Bethesda on the topic. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the whole story. As far as whether or not this will lead to a lawsuit, I would say it's pretty unlikely, although we will have to see. But yeah, I really wanted to make this video because I felt like other channels or articles weren't really focusing enough on certain points and almost creating confusion as a result, like which Bethesda this was, the fact that it was promotional material and not like a separate product that was being sold, the fact that it was offered for free. I don't highlight those things to really downplay the issue, it still is a pretty big mess up, but it's important context as to what actually went on here. And also, if you go on some of the major forums or talk to certain community members that have been looking at this, there's this narrative being pushed that this was actually only created for personal use and the original author didn't actually intend for it to go live, that it was some rogue social media agent at Bethesda that just took it out of the Dropbox and started tweeting about it. I actually tried searching out some proof of that or literally any evidence that that was true. It seems like it was just a hunch one user had and now a ton of people are saying it. Even further, I would say if you actually look at the official tweets from the Elder Scrolls Online Twitter account, they kind of say, yeah, we wanted this to be made, we just wanted it to be original and not copied. So I don't think the thing was just made for personal use, which is kind of ironic because in many of those same threads, they're criticizing the articles for spreading misinformation while the commenters themselves are also seemingly spreading misinformation. Either way though, taking that all together, I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments down below. How big of a deal do you really view this as? Do you feel like it was wrongfully covered or rightfully covered? Do you think Bethesda should or kind of deserves legal action against them as a result of this? I'm curious to see what happens next. I kind of feel like it'll just fizzle out and end up being nothing outside of just bad PR for Bethesda, but it would be pretty interesting if the original authors do pursue something. Either way, as always, again, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.